Start the demo. Tonight's demo, we're going to go over a bunch of utilities. These are just our board members' favorite utilities. Some of them are kind of trivial, do really kind of small things. Some of them do some pretty interesting things. Our goal is we'll probably have around 50 or 60 at least off what we'll demo tonight. I think JC also has 3 CDs full of utilities as well. And we'll probably issue out another members' utilities disc like the one we have in the library that's a couple years old now. Some of these programs might be on the existing utilities disks, some are newer versions. Some of these are shareware, some are freeware, some are pay-only. There's kind of a mixture of everything here. All the stuff I'm going to demo is all free. I don't know if the stuff Mike is going to demo is free. He's also free as well. And I think everyone else will probably demo pretty much free applications. Okay? If you guys have any questions about what they do or how they work or why in the world you ever want to do something like that, just chime right in and we'll answer any questions you got. Okay? The first one I have will destroy all the data on Mike's hard drive.
Yeah, thanks.
One of my favorite, some of these are internet only, so they're a little hard to use. But one of my favorite ones here is called D4 Time. D4 Time just sits in your system clock, your system tray, down by the clock, and all it does is goes on the internet and checks for the time. Nothing frustrates me more than having my computers, or for that matter, the clocks in my house off by a few minutes. I hate going from the bathroom where it's 8:30 and I can make it to work on time, to my bedroom where it's now 8:37, 2 seconds later, and I'm late for work. Right? The same with my computers. It also comes in handy. I happen to have a fair number of computers networked together in my house, and it's really annoying when you're trading files and moving files back and forth between the two of them, and the timestamps are different on the files slightly. Right? The D4 Time just sits down in your tray, and it pulls the atomic clocks that are on the internet. There's these incredibly accurate atomic clocks all over the internet at universities. They're accurate to like 4 trillionths of a second over the next 5 millennium or something. They're just incredibly accurate. In fact, they're so accurate that they have to keep adjusting the time because the Earth's rotation slows down enough each year that if they didn't adjust the time, the clocks would be different than, they say they're noon, it's actually like 11 o'clock. D4 just sits in your tray. There's a couple little tricks about using them. We can't really use them tonight because we're not on the internet. But you can tell him to run hidden down here, and he won't show up at all. And a lot of times you want to come here and tell him that if you have this display synchronization set, he'll pop up every time you synchronize. And right now he's going to synchronize, I think, every 15 minutes. He'll pop up and say, hey, I synchronized your clock, just so you know. Well, who cares? The whole purpose is he run down there nonstop. I just leave him display synchronization turned off, display errors turned on, and tell him to go. Another neat little thing is whenever my internet access dies, like Mike does all the time, D4 pops up and says, hey, I can't reach the internet to synchronize your time. And I go, oh, my internet account is dead again. Call the charter and ditch, right? That's pretty much what I do. I just come here and tell them display synchronization, turn that off, tell them OK, tell them to run hidden, and then just tell them OK. And right now, it's tells me he can't get hold of that clock out there. And that's it. He's down here in the clock, down here in the tray. And if you click on it, he'll synchronize. If you run your mouse over, he'll tell you when the last time was you synchronized and by how much your clock was off. It's kind of a neat little program. Doesn't cost a nickel. Let me put it over here. All these are the time clocks on here. He's got basically every clock in the world listed, so I'm not too worried about messing with those. That's D4. Another one of my favorite ones here. This is DOS6 Diag, and this won't do us any good here at all. But if you have a cable modem, they have a standard called DOS6, and I forget what the heck it stands for, but basically there's a standard that all cable modems comply to. It has to do with how your cable modem at your house talks to the cable company, and they set that link up, right? And what DOS6 Diag will do is it goes out and there's a standard communication protocol your modem will speak if you want to query it. And it'll tell you things like how much energy your modem is expending to talk upstream. The more energy it has to expend to talk upstream, the lower the quality your signal is. The more likely you are to have disconnects and slow speeds. It'll also tell you how strong the signal is it's getting down from the head office. The lower that signal is, the quieter that signal is, the more likely you are to have synchronization problems and get low speed. There's actually specs. If you go out to some web pages, they'll tell you that you don't want to be any lower than I think it's like negative 7 dB download, no greater than like positive 40 dB upstream. Right? I went and ran this. I was having all sorts of cable modem problems at the house. I ran this and discovered that I was putting out like positive 60 dB going upstream. The modem can't talk any louder than that. So my modem was shouting as loud as it could to get barely heard by the upstream. That told me I had something wrong. And after 2 months of bitumen charge, they came out and said, oh yeah, we forgot to sweep your neighborhood, which is when they come out and put all the right types of taps and filters in place. And they did that, and all my cable loading problems miraculously went away. So this is a neat one. And all you do is just, if you have like XP or ME, 98, just put a run command. It'll go out there and show this big screen up that shows you all the stuff it knows about your cable. And it'll give you stuff like you never thought of, like the firmware, the manufacturer, the upload speed, the download speed that the cable company capped you at, the manufacturer, the last time was how many minutes it's been online, when the last time was it lost sync. I mean, just all sorts of stuff you don't want to know. The neat thing about this is you call up the guys at Charter Cable and you start getting no, we're not having any problems here. You can start reading the stuff off to them. They very quickly hand you to someone that actually knows what they're doing. I think they have one person like that in the entire company. Neuro information tool. This is flipped over our brief Neuro. Right here real quick. What Neuro information tool does is it goes out and it looks at all the CDs, CD-ROMs, CD burners, DVD-ROMs, and DVD burners on your computer, and gives you information about them. For example, in Mike's machine right here, he's got a drive, a combo drive. It's got this particular version of firmware, so if I want to know about the latest firmware for my drive, I go to the manufacturer's website, and they might tell me the latest version is 1D08. Oh, I got a little firmware. New firmware upgrade might make it recognize media better. Its maximum read speed is 24x, maximum write speed is 24x. It gives you all the features it supports down here. This one will read DVD minus RWs. It won't read DVD plus Rs or plus RWs. Notice over here that's not checked off on here. So if I get a disc from somebody that won't read, probably it's a DVD plus R, right? Write features, you can write CD-RW. It can't write any DVD, so it's not a DVD burner. It doesn't support Mount Rainier, which is a standard that lets you basically treat these things as their floppy disks. So you have to use a packet writer to do that with this one. It does have buffer underrun protection, so I don't have to worry about making coasters out of too many of the CDs. Great tool if you buy a DVD. A lot of times you buy CDs, cheap CD burners, and cheap DVD burners, and ROMs and Office Max on rebate for like $0. They all say Sendyne, but Sendyne doesn't make their own. They buy them from Sony this week, iOmega last week, Buslink the week after that. You have no idea what you're getting. So I'll use Neuro information tool to come out here and very quickly go, aha, I recognize this. This is a light-on drive, and I know how to go fix these things. Or look at them. We'll also give you some other stuff in here as well. If you had a disc in, it would tell you what type of disc you had. It might even tell you the manufacturer of the disc. A lot of times you buy the Spinex discs. They're actually made by a different company. This will tell you to make it blank. So if you got two Spinex discs, you got like 2 piles of 100 discs. This pile burns for crap. This pile works fine. Pop them in and talk to the different manufacturers. It also tells you the configuration, like what channels are hanging off of. Your ASPI layer, whether or not it's in there, Mike doesn't have an ASPI layer, so he probably can't do things like DVD ripping on this drive very well. He can install an ASPI layer if he wanted to. Drivers will say which drivers are out there for which devices. That's kind of nice. Sometimes you're trying to figure out why I can't get some work right. You know, you can burning software and stuff down there as well. There's another tool that goes along with this you get from Nero's website for free called CD Speed. And it'll actually go out and test the read and write speed of your CDs. And I've had people who tell you, my 48X CD drive doesn't really burn very well. What's going on? You go out and run a test on it and discover that it's using a different type of burning technology, using a constant angular velocity versus partial angular velocity, which gives you different speeds. So the 48X burners don't always burn at the same speeds. Depends on the technology on it. You can use info tool to find what's going on. I even had one where Mike would have the exact same drive that I have. And he says, it seems kind of slower, but I'm not really sure. I run CD speed test on it, and sure enough, his is slower than mine. We find out he's got DMA turned off on his. Good troubleshooting. That's free off on your website. Okay, net per second. This is probably one of my all-time favorites. I'll install it here. Net per second was actually written by PC Magazine, and all it does is it sits in your system tray down here. It's right here. It's not going to do anything here, but what it does is it tells you how much data you're sending and receiving per second on your LAN connection. It could be off to the internet or to your other machines in your house. And it puts a little graph down here for you too. If you double click on it, it'll even bring the graph up for you as well and show you how much you're sending and receiving. What's kind of neat about this, whenever I'm copying files back and forth between machines, I'll pop this up and go, wait a second, I know my Ethernet connection I should get about 80 kilobits per second, but I'm only getting 50 what's going on, look at the machine and sure enough it's got something going wrong with it. Or at work I was copying files around one time and we were only getting about 300 K per second from a machine that should give us over 100 megabits per second, and I went and fished the routers with the network guys and they discovered they had a router configured wrong. I even done things like this. I just was sitting down there, not doing anything on the internet at all, and I see a spike go across. A few seconds later, spike go across. I start looking at another tool which showed in a few minutes and discover that somebody's downloaded spyware on my computer and it's busily talking to another computer on the internet. So it's kind of neat little one to have sitting down there. Sometimes if you're wondering, just how slow something going, so fast going, it'll pop it up and see.
What was that, netpersec.com?
No. This is a little flaky. It used to be, PC Magazine used to give away for free. Now they want to charge you for it. So to find the old free version, you have to look around, look for netpersec.zip. You'll probably find it floating around there. Or you could buy the CD at next month's session, waiting for knowledge. In fact, that's the only way you're going to get it. Don't look further than that. It won't find it.
So this will be available at
this one's called Photocopy. This guy's really itty-bitty tiny. And what he does, let's say I've got a bunch of files. Right? Normally, whenever your computer goes copy files across, the built-in Windows copy routines don't drive your machine to 100% utilization. They drive to about 90% utilization. So that's so you can do other things on the computer, and it seems like it's not taking forever while you're copying files around. Well, all I'm doing is want to copy files. I really would like to have a 10% speed back if you don't mind, right? You also can't resume a copy if it dies in the middle. Let's say you start to copy something and you reboot your machine, you can't resume the copy. And you also have no idea how fast the copy really is going. It tells you how many seconds, but doesn't really give you a very good feel for it. Total copy, you just install like this. And now if I take a bunch of files, like let's say here, let me make a folder on my desktop. There's my folder. I'm just going to come over here and just going to select all these files, just be normally would, right? I'm going to go over here and do a right click when I put them over here. And notice now they have total copy and total move. Didn't have those before, that's my new program. I'm going to say go ahead and total copy. And right there it's telling me I'm getting about 1.5 K per second. I'm going to pause this for a second. I was getting roughly a 2.3 K per second copying the file over. I can resume it if I want. I can pause it if I want. If the machine crashes, it will come back up and resume its copy from where it left off at. If I'm copying across the network, that kilobit per second gives me basically the same information I got right here from net per second. If I'm copying CDs, you'll discover CDs don't read the same speed all the way throughout. I can tell when I got problems with the CD not reading right, that K per second drops down to about 3 or 4 K per second. Let you know when I got CD copy problems. The other neat little thing is the speed limit right here. Right now, it's got no limit on how fast it'll copy. I can drop this down. You go, why in the world would you ever want to limit how fast you copy a file? Okay, let's say I'm doing something like capturing video on my hard drive, and I'm really driving that hard drive crazy, writing lots of data to it, right? Think this big, huge video file I'm capturing, it's, the West Wing or Star Trek or something, right? I'm really driving that hard drive to full speed, but I want to copy a file off of it, right? I don't want to wait until the episode gets over and I'm done capturing. Like I tell Turbo Copy, go ahead and copy, but set the speed limit down, like say around 500 K per second or so. Well, the drive happens to have enough bandwidth left, it can do the 500 K per second. It can't do the full speed, it can do the 500 K per second and not starve the other applications off. So it's a way for me to kind of very slowly copy things off the drive and let the drive keep some reserve left over for other applications that are out there running. A lot of times I'll have, like, if I'm copying from CD, I might have like 4 or 5 of these turbo copies, Windows open, all copying from CD onto the same hard drive. And I may slow one of those down because I'm running late for a meeting, and I don't care if the fourth one finishes or not before I leave for the meeting, but I want the first one to get done. So I'll slow everyone else down, and then speed the first one back up.
Why do you leave it there? I'll use it in
another one here is Tweak UI Win2K. This is another one of my favorite ones. This one's a little weird. When you go to install on the README file, you right click on it. It's on here, and you say install, and it puts it on your machine. Tweak UI comes from Microsoft's website. Be careful, there's some others out there called Tweak UI that come from Microsoft's website. It gives you a little box in there someplace, Tweak UI. And these are all the things that I can make my computer do that aren't normally available to me. It's not easy, not a lot of patches and stuff. All sorts of stuff. like I can tell to do things like turn off the keyboard indicators. So like whenever, like up here, if I hit the Alt key, you can see keyboard indicators come on. Like the underlines, the Alt W for new. That tells it to always show those, so they don't typically show up until you hit the Alt key sometimes. I can turn off the cursor shadow. There's a shadow underneath the cursor. So it shows up better. I can turn it off. It drives some people insane. I can turn off the animations on the menus. Those things with the menus that pop up and go back down. They're great for first time users because it kind of shows you where they're going and coming from, but after you use the machine for a while, they just so slow. All sorts of stuff I can turn off. Switch it fading. All these things, basically anything I've turned on here will make the computer slightly slower, right? I can tell that an application can't still focus, so one application is running over here and all of a sudden wants to pop up to the top of the others. I can tell if you can't do that, it'll sit in the background and flash an icon at me on the taskbar. So I can keep doing what I'm doing. I have a Lotus Notes nail client at work that has very annoying hazard right in the middle of it. Right in the middle of stuff. That right in the middle of doing my work, keying into a terminal program, it pops up and says you got new mail, and all my keystrokes the last 5 minutes go into the little box saying you got new mail, and not the terminal program is keying into. So I tell you can't do that. You can do things like get rid of the little right arrow on the shortcuts. On your desk, it's the right arrow right here. I can tell not to show those. All sorts of things like that.
Why would you want to do that?
Is XP?
Some of it is. Now, keep on. This is for 2000. It actually came with 95. Now, XP has some of these in it already, and some of the things you can't get to in XP. With Internet Explorer, I can do some things like not show stock, start menu, and all sorts of things. Show document, show back buttons. And there's all sorts of stuff. I can tell to clear out my document history whenever I loot the machine, so I don't want people to see where I've been. They loot the machine, I can clear out my document history. I found another good use for document history today. Yesterday, I had another machine that was encoding video. And I was telling the encoder on that machine, go to 100%. Use this machine to the exclusion of everything else on that machine. Right? Do nothing but encode video. I don't care what else you got to do. Happened to be that down here on my start menu on another machine, under documents, I had links to, because I opened up documents on another machine across my network. On this machine, it wasn't doing any work. If I'm here and I try to go to programs and scroll past documents and want to pop that box up, it would stall. It was trying to talk to that machine that was encoding video where it had these links. And that machine was too busy to actually answer its request to find if these files still existed or not. So it was really annoying. After the third time running over and freezing the machine for about 30 seconds and pulled the little hair I have left out, I came in here and told it to clear the document history login. I told it to do it right now, and now you'll see that all of those are gone. Save their internet history and stuff like that. I also do some work because I don't want people to see where I've been.
Chuck, can you talk just a touch louder? We can't hear a thing back here.
I'm sorry, did you say something?
No.
Okay. So there's also stuff you can send out there. Repairing, you can rebuild icons and folders and some of the registry things and stuff. We have a computer with the icons act a little weird. Yeah.
When you're on the internet and you know how you go to different files and you're moving them and then it saves the places that you've been, is that the place where you would go?
You can clear it up in there. You can tell when to right click on the desk, when you right click it says new, that always seems to show up in new. Well, I'm never going to make a Microsoft briefcase file. I've had briefcases since like 1995 and never used it. Get the damn thing out of there. I can turn it off so it doesn't show up. Paranoia, play CDs automatically. You put a CD in your computer, it plays automatically. But what if someone gave you a CD that's infected with the virus? Right? You pop in your machine and it just installed the virus for you, right? So I'll turn it off. I've also found out that when you're burning CDs, sometimes like Nero, you pop a CD and it's got data on there, sometimes it will bring that program up rather than let Nero have control, the two argue for a while. So turning it off helps sometimes. So there's all sorts of neat stuff you can do in here. You can take the stuff off the desktop so you don't want the like the printers to show up and the network places to show up. You can take those all off the desktop with special icons. All sorts of stuff here to play with. That's good UI. Virtual Dub. Brent wasn't into Virtual Dub much, but we've had this on some of the other club demos. Virtual Dub is a Swiss Army knife of video work. If you do any kind of video work whatsoever, you really should use Virtual Dub. It's a linear editor that lets you transform one video format to another. There's no way in the world I can go through all this stuff today tonight on Virtual Dub, but look at any of the club discs involving video, editing video, capturing video, working video, and Virtual Dub will be the centerpiece of all this. It's by far, and it's amazing, it's free. It's the premier program doing this. Let's see, Cashman. Cashman is a program that was more important than Windows 95 and 98. And in fact, you're going to want Windows 195. Do you still have your 98 machine? No, I'm sorry, Franklin.
No, bro.
Rob, you still have your 98 machine
Yeah, I
out
got mine.
with all the memory, and you keep telling me that Word 768 meg memory, and I say don't do it until you get cache man. Yeah. Cache just sits down here in your tray. And under XP in 2000, it doesn't do as much for you as it does under 95 and 98. But you can basically tweak the settings for your drive controllers. So like for my caching and stuff, I can tell them, like in here, I want to take the memory, the amount of Windows has system memory that reserves for system use, like your programming stuff, and memory that reserves for files, caching the files. And it tries to balance those itself. It tries to figure out what's the best ratio, but it doesn't know what I use my machine for typically. So I might tell it that right now I want to minimize memory use, so I don't have a lot of memory. Save as much as you can for applications, and of course my drive is going to work a little slower. That's what works. That's what it does as a default. I could say maximize throughput for file sharing. So it's actually going to starve my applications for memory if they need it, and give a lot more of the system memory over to the cache, so the file access goes a lot faster. So if you have machines using it as a server, you probably tell it to maximize throughput for file sharing. The icon cache, it's about how many icons to store in the cache. You notice if you go to like a new window and you have to wait for the little icons to draw, it takes a while. That's because those icons aren't in the icon cache. You can bump up the size of the icon cache, the more icons are in there, so it gets a little more responsive. Of course, you lose more memory to do that. RAM, this thing will also recover memory. That isn't so much an issue under 2000, under 98. So if you have memory that gets lost, it will recover for you automatically. And the tweaks are kind of interesting. So I have a page lock though. This tells the computer how much memory it can read and write to the drive at one time. The more it can read and write at one time, the faster it goes, the more memory that it uses. I have a machine at home with 1.25 gig of memory on it, and I use it for a server. So I did this thing all the way up at 440, or in my case, 1.25 is the max amount of RAM. So my computer is able to swap all its memory out at one time and bring it all back in at one time. It means it could use all the memory, but since all the machine is doing is acting as a file server, why not? Disable NTFS last access. NTFS file systems keep track of the last time that you read a file, not just the last time you modified it. That turns it off. If you don't care when the last time was a file was read from, only modified, turn it off, and it will save that time. Every time you open the file, and it will update the time of the last access. NTFS also creates short file names. The original DOS 8.3 file name, those little ones, the tilde1, tilde2, tilde3 in them. You can turn that off, and it will speed up the time that your drive works. The disadvantage is like with Norton antivirus, some of the antivirus utilities don't like that, and they freak out on you. So if you're running Norton, don't turn it on. Reserve more space for master file table. NTFS provides a single master file table for all the files are stored. And Windows will actually go and allocate more space if it needs it, which you can tell it to pre-allocate even more if you want, and it speeds up disk access at the cost of memory. And defragment hard disk when idle, 2000 of this, but XP you can tell it to defragment your hard drive in the background that's got nothing else to do. So when you actually go through and try to defragment later, there's not quite as much. And it doesn't do the full defragment, it just goes in spots around. So here's a byte over here I can move, here's a byte over here I can move. And over the course of like 5 years, it would actually fully defragment the drive. But in the course of a couple weeks or so, it'll keep it from being as badly fragmented. Miscellaneous stuff, this just has to do with on that. Whenever you go to close an application, because does this application respond to you want to end it now? This controls how long it takes to pop up. Under Windows 95, it's interminably long. It's like 3 hours before it pops up. This will tell how long to actually give it reality. If you have Windows 95 and you run this in Windows 98, there's another one on here that under tweaks, or actually under cache run, there's a number of settings up here that shot that pop up and tell you how to specify the size of the disk cache and how it's allocated and stuff. And there's another checkbox that says handle more than 768 meg of memory. If you put more than 768 meg of memory in a Windows 95 or 98 machine, I will guarantee you you're going to get a blue screen of death at some point in your life that says error in VXD cache, right? And it's going to pop up. Usually when you write to the hard drive, at the very least time you want it to ever pop up. And that's because Windows 95 and 98 have a bug in their cache driver that doesn't handle large amounts of memory. It stops at 768. This guy has a little tweak in there that keeps him from allocating more than 768 meg of memory into the cache, so you never encounter that. So if you want to put more than 768 meg of memory on your Windows 95 or 98 machine, run cache man or forever suffer the blue screen of death. Sound familiar, Rob? That's cache. G-Spot, that was the thing it is.
That's good. Work machine. Nice work.
G-Spot, if you ever do a lot of video work, is nice. What it does is you drag a video file to it. Yeah. We'll find one somewhere. I'm going to take this video file over here. If you have a video file that won't play, it keeps popping so they can't find the codec to play it with. You bring in the G-Spot, and it will tell you not only what codec it uses for the video and for the audio, but it will also tell you whether or not you can actually play it right on your machine. Okay? So if we do a lot of video work, I can say this one, its codec is Cinemapack by Supermax. This thing lasts 2 minutes and 4 seconds. It's got 320 by 240 for its resolution. It's using PCM audio, which is uncompressed audio. It's in stereo. Let's see, render, I can call it the render. It was actually able to play it without any problem. Here's the video codecs that it used to do it. There's even a new version coming out now that I can go in there and tell it which codec to actually use, and it changed what's called 4CC, which is the byte in the AVI file that tells it what codec to use. You see this a lot. Xvid and DivX fight for control of each other's codecs, and you have a file that won't play because Xvid wants to play it, and in reality it's a little DivX file. If you force the 4CC, it'll play the right way. So anytime you're doing video work and you want to find out something about the video, this is a wonderful little tool to have. iView. This is one of my dad's favorites, one of mine. If you do any work with photos of any kind, iView is the program for you to use. It will display all these different types of picture files. Okay? Yeah, it does tons. We'll even do audio files as well and stuff. I'm going to go ahead and tell it, who's going to tell it?
What's the name of the program?
iView.
IRFanView is the name of it.
IRFanView, yeah, they call it iView. It's IRFanView is the company. And it's got a lot of really neat things. I'm going back to our good old find buddy here again. So the stars, forget files. Okay, and let's go over for iView.
Should be able to.
Actually, right. And here it goes. It just brought that one up. And it tells it's a 28 by 21 GIF file, 8 bytes per pixel, color. And I can do all sorts of things. iView will actually slideshow, so if I go like this, it'll give me the next one in that same directory. So it's going through all the stuff, and it looks like this is part of the Windows directory or video DVDs. You're seeing the foreign language boxes. If you have a big hard drive,
Is that in Arabic?
yeah, it's actually Arabic. If you have like a CD full of pictures, this is a great way to go through them one at a time.
I'm a terrorist.
You need to do a slideshow for you.
If I told you what I was working on, I'd have to kill you.
There's a slideshow option you can have up here where you can tell it to go and. But it'll actually go through all the files in that directory one at a time. Now you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can even do things like.
How do you know where viruses come from?
You can even do things. It'll do scanning for you, so you can scan stuff. It supports batch scanning, so if your printer will do multiple scans of the same document, you can do batch scanning. It dumps them all in the directory for you, so you don't have to sit there and do them all at a time. It also does a batch conversion under. You can effectively enhance the colors, so you can change the gamma and the blues and all that kind of stuff. So you can change your files in here. You can also.
Can you then save it as another format?
Sure.
So you want to save it as JPEG or something?
Absolutely, if you want to. You can resize them, so I can change. I didn't want this to be this size. I want it to be 640 by 480. So we'll bring it up. And the neat thing is, if you have a bunch of files you want to do the same thing to, you can do batch processing. And here I can basically select all the files that I want to do. Here. Add. So it's going to go touch all those files, right? And what do I want to do with them? Well, let's see. I want to do a batch conversion to them. Okay. I can save them all as JPEG, but GIFs right now if I wanted to. Do advanced options, and I can resize them all to 640, 480, right? And it would all go out there and just do them all in one shot. I can just pop up one. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to change my Arabic windows there. But it'll do them all. I had a bunch of stuff, a bunch of Polaroid instant film camera pictures so that I scanned my scanner sports batch scanner, so I could put like 8 pictures on the scanner, go into batch scanning, tell them to scan it all, and you just draw little boxes around them and puts them all on the hard drive for you. But they're all rotated the wrong way. They're all rotated to the left. So I did a batch conversion to rotate them to the right to put them in the right area, and I didn't have to touch them that way. Yeah, it can't do all the fancy editing like Adobe can do. This thing will crop, it'll rotate, it'll resize. It does everything you want to do for the majority of all your photo work. So, yeah, that's definitely one of the best programs for video work or picture work. Motherboard monitor. This is another one of my favorite ones.
What's it called?
Motherboard monitor. Yeah, motherboard monitor does just what it says it does. We have to reboot the machine to make it work correctly. What it does is that on your motherboard, almost all modern motherboards, they have sensors. Sensors for the temperature inside the case, sensors for the temperature of the CPU.
It's the E. It's your. Well, you gotta disengage it. Stop. That concludes it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, if you're trying to do something.
Yeah.
Can you kill Lord? Tell it to go away.
Nope.
Control Alt.
Control Alt.
Unplug and pull the battery off of it, it'll go away. The computer like that.
I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I wasn't my intent to reboot this actually. Motherboard monitor problem with that. But motherboard monitors, there's sensors on your motherboard for temperature, and then the CPU for temperature, and fan speed and voltage, right? Motherboard monitor will sit back there and monitor all those for you. And if your fan speed suddenly drops, meaning that you probably have a cable stuck inside your fan, or your fan is seized up and your machine's about to roast itself to death, the motherboard monitor will pop up and say, your fan has stopped, and you might want to shut down your machine before it overheats. It can even do things like monitor the actual temperature of your CPU, and if it gets above a certain threshold, send you an email saying, hey, your machine is above a certain temperature. You can even shut down the machine if it gets above a certain temperature if you want to. Let's say the voltage levels and things. I've even had machines, they'll even log those to a file for you. I've had people complain that my machine runs unstably. I bring up motherboard monitor and their CPU is like at 87 degrees Celsius. It's not supposed to be above 70 and really not above 60, right?
Yeah.
Find out why. I've had other people say the machine's wigging out, and you log the voltages to a file and discover that their voltage in their power supply is supposed to be 5 volts, and you can see right before it wigged out, it dropped down to like 4 point or 3.8, right? 4.0 or 3.8, because something's wrong with their power supply, right?
It'll actually tell you the fan's not running? Or?
Oh yeah, it'll tell the fans that running.
My brother just had that problem.
Yep.
So he would just go on, download motherboard.
Motherboard monitor. You can tell it, it'll track the fan speeds for you, and it'll also tell you, and you can also set an alarm, and they'll come up and beep at you if the speed's too slow. You do have to be a little careful. I have some temperature-sensitive fans on most of my machines, and the hotter the machine gets, the faster the fan goes. Well, the lower temperature, the slower the fan goes, right? And I opened up the windows of my computer room one time during the wintertime just to let some fresh air in. The temperature of the room got down to about 30 degrees, and the fans went so slow because I didn't need to spin that fast. The motherboard monitor freaked out and rebooted my machine, thinking the fan had stopped. Right? Not a big deal. It's just annoying or anything.
A little too advanced for here.
Yeah, exactly what it is. There's all sorts of configurations to do a motherboard monitor. You can,
And can you set that up to where it runs automatically?
yeah, Mike's got to do it.
I remember this one. It's faster. I know that password.
We didn't want to
The only
talk.
bad thing with motherboard monitor, and they've gotten better, is that it doesn't always know which sensors to use in your motherboard, because you might have a particular sensor chip that knows that, but which pins of that sensor chip go to which sensors it doesn't typically know. And a lot of people here of late have actually built a big database on their website that's built into the same now. It gets
Aha. Okay, you can actually demonstrate a utility that I am running.
Okay.
Because it caught you trying to install something.
Okay.
And you can cancel all at the same time. Yeah, this color's go black. This program here is Wind Patrol. See this little Scotty dog sitting down here? He watches for anything that gets installed in your machine. Anytime you reboot and something wants to go into your startup directory, it says, hey, do you really want to add this to your startup directory? So all your adware that gets put in there. This will catch anything that's trying to start the next time you go in. So now you can actually say yes, because we know what it is. It's the program you install.
That's what I need.
But this Wind Patrol will catch that stuff. And I was going to show you this, but that's perfect.
There's Cashman too on that.
And it'll stop you and you can say yes or no. You can prevent anybody from putting anything in your startup directory.
Start with the monitor right here. And I'm not going to go through all the configurations of the motherboard monitor. It would take the whole rest of the meeting. And that's it sitting right down here. Right now it says I don't have any temperature reading at all.
Yeah, it's configured.
Yeah, I have to figure that. Now come here, temperatures, sensor to 1. Yeah, Mike doesn't have any sensors, any standard sensors in his motherboard.
Then a laptop.
And his laptop. Unfortunately. Normally you come here and there'd be like a chip name listed, like a 3N768-1, 3N768-2. And those would be picked for you automatically by the install program. You have to come back and tweak them a little bit. You probably the problem with fan sensors. Yeah, it doesn't have any fan sensors either. The voltages it's going to detect, if I went up on high lows, I can see right now, that's not detecting anything. Yeah. Mike's motherboard has completely non-standard sensors. He's one of the few. If you go to motherboard monitor's website, they'll tell you which motherboards they support. And so far, Mike is the only one I've found that isn't supported.
It's telling you total number of readouts 6, CPU's 19, 93.
You can tell you can make it so that these things, like the temperature, the alarm, the temperature goes above 70, gives you an alarm. The temperature goes below 5, it'll give you an alarm. I have to enable the low temperature sensor. I can tell it to play the sound whenever the alarm goes off. I can even tell it to start an application when the alarm goes off, like shutdown, to shut down the computer. I can send an email whenever the temperature goes off. So I can actually be at work and I'll get an email from my computer at home saying, hey, just so you know, my CPU temperature is 85 degrees. I'm about ready to roast to death.
And your home one?
Yeah, email me work looking at that. But I can go and take a remote control from work and tell it shut down, and if that's okay, I'll take a look at it later. Now, usually what I do is I just tell it to go ahead and shut down. I mean, not the work you then the names you want to display, the colors you want, whether or not it should be in the dashboard screen, what type of meters to use. It's got all sorts of stuff in here. It's spent your entire life customizing this. Usually what I do is I have it just show, instead of this icon here, I'll have it show just my CPU temperature. Whenever I mouse over it like that, I'll have it show my CPU temperature, my fan speed, my case temperature. And the high-low log is kind of nice. You can always go to a log file and then you can go back and read it later on. It's it's kind of complicated, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty straightforward. It might have decent sense of you.
Yeah, whatever they do.
Yeah.
Free computers don't need sensors.
That's right.
They burn, they just
This neat program right here, this is called Neat. This one I haven't played with a whole lot. This is kind of a demo. If you do any work with video cameras, this is a cool program to have. And let me show you what you basically do here. You go and give it an input image. I just happen to have one right here. If you notice this picture, it's kind of hard to tell. There's all sorts of gradients in this picture. It's really dark. You can't see it. This is taken with my Canon digital video camera. So I'm going to do that right there. It has a still picture button on there. I took a still picture in a room that looked okay for video, but for still pictures, there wasn't enough light because the shutter speed was different. I got this really grainy picture. You can't see anything in it. If you look at it real close, there's all sorts of flecks in it. If you just boost the brightness, all that happens is you just see the flecks more, right? Well, this guy actually has what are called device noise profiles. And I can set this, and I'm not going to go through this, but you have to go to the website. But basically, all cameras make particular types of noise they put into the image. These guys have gone through and figured out what the default level of noise is for a whole slug of cameras. Go to the website and download the profiles for free. I tell this image was shot with this camera, right? and it goes, oh, I know what noise this camera makes, and it goes up and removes all the noise for you. Right? And I didn't even have a noise profile for my camera. They don't have them for this particular Canon. But I was able to take this picture and turn it into this picture, and I know it's kind of hard to see the difference here. Let me bring this one up here. This is the original over here. Notice how there's none of this grayness. See, like over his forehead right here, it's all splotchy. It's all gone right here. When my dad used a program called Digital Camera Enhancer to do this, one that he likes, all he wanted to do was making more contrast and more blotchy. He didn't actually do it, or make it more diffuse. So I came here and actually did a gamma correction on this. This moves the gamma so it's a little bit speed. I'm going to bring the gamma to the point where it's a little ridiculous here, just to show the difference. See the difference in the noise? Okay. And sure, I lost a little bit of detail, like around his eyes. Over here, you can actually see the little fold in his eyelid. Over here, you can't. But you can adjust that a little bit and get it pretty good. This is I use this for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds when I was able to do this. So you mess with digital camera pictures. You could have done this with Photoshop and a big, thick manual and a couple of hours, where you just come here and go, it's a Canon ZR50, and it's done.
What's the full name of it? Neat image what?
It'll be on the CD next month. Buy it. They had this on Tech TV where I came across it. And since I do take a lot of pictures, and I'm horrible about taking decent quality pictures, it's always dark, it's always bright, they're always lit wrong, and I can never fix them the right way, so I don't have the patience for it. Great program there.
Now, where do you get the profiles from?
Their website. If you go to the website, they'll have you can download them from there, and you can install as many as you want. You just saw the neat feature about IRFan, you were able to boost the gamma and the colors and stuff. Okay, this is standard benchmark. This is another good program if you're doing a lot of work with computers. What this does is it goes through and it tests the speed of your various some of your parts of your computer. And all it's just benchmarking software, and it goes through and tells you how fast a particular section of particular part of your computer is working, like your hard drive, your memory, your CPU, your network, whatever you want, right? And where it's nice is, let's say I just got done installing a new hard drive, and I want to see if it's working as fast as it should. Well, what Sandra has in it is a database of other similar systems. Okay? So I come here and do, like I said, it also the testing module, which is another thing for you. Let's do benchmarking. Let's do look at one like that fast here. I'll do files. Okay. Now right now it hasn't actually gone and tested my files on my drive, and I'm going to do something to make this work a little bit faster. I'm going to turn off.
You have to memorize what all these things mean.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and call to do it. And I'm just going to, you can click refresh, I'm just going to pick this drive. Right now it's up for testing. Don't move the mouse, don't do anything. It's actually writing to Mike's hard drive back and forth and doing much of analysis. It's going to tell me how fast this drive is. It's going to give me an index of what its average speed is. And as you can see on the other side there, it's got some other drives, like a serial ATA 150 drive, a SCSI 320 drive, a bunch of other drives here, ranging like RAID configurations and things. I can compare my drive to these other drives and see how fast am I. Am I as fast as another similar type of drive? I have a machine at home I put together. It's got 12 hard drives in it, 2.4 terabytes of online space. I have 3 RAID 0 arrays in there with an expanded volume modem. So I literally have one drive that looks like 2.4 terabytes, right? Well, in setting all this up, when you set up your RAID arrays, there's a lot of factors that determine how fast the drive works, how big the stripe size, how big the cluster size, and a bunch of other things that control that all affect the speed, right? And I actually sat there one night and just went through and said, this cluster size, this stripe size, this cluster size, this stripe size, and did all the tests and found out which combination of that was faster. The difference was almost 3 times faster from the defaults to what I actually managed to find. Now, different RAID cards instead of drives that have a different set of parameters, and I have to go through that test all over again. So I spent the next night going to the next RAID cluster and doing the same thing and figuring out the optimal configuration.
You need to get out. He needs a life.
life, don't you?
But we're learning.
Right.
That's right.
The other neat thing that Sandra has in here has what's called a burn-in module. And the burn-in module, it goes out and just runs your computer as fast as it can run, right? Just as fast as it can go. And if you do the burn-in module, turn off the file system burn-ins. You don't really care how fast your hard drive can go. It'll actually go through and test the memory as fast as it can, test the CPU as fast as it can, go back and test the CPU, test the memory, just does this forever, right? If you want to see how stable your brand new computer is, do I have an overheating problem on my machine? Do I have a memory problem, a power supply problem? You're not going to find that unless you stress it, right? So I'll put a motherboard monitor down there, taking little snapshots of what's going on, CPU temperature and voltage. I'll run a standard benchmark on this burn-in module, go run that machine to its fullest extent until it crashes, and I can go back and say, aha, I got an overheat problem, or I got a voltage problem on here. I sell a lot of used computers, and every time I put together a used computer, when I go take it to the used computer store, I don't want them to come calling and say, hey, that machine you sold 2 weeks ago for you keeps crashing, right? So I run standard benchmark burn-in module on the machines I sell for 24 to 48 hours. They just run full throttle, non-stop, high speed, something you'll never do with the machine. If they don't lock up, then you know that they're pretty stable, and I can sell them. The other thing I do is I write on there, this system was tested with standard benchmarking for a 48-hour burn-in test. Once I've done that, I've never had a machine come back and say from someone saying that shuts down or locks up all the time. It won't argue. Mike's hard drive right here scored 14 megabits per second. If you come out here and take a look, his buffer reads at 14 megabits per second, sequential reads, this is all 14. He's got a fairly slow performing drive. Array 0 array, which we actually have the data spread across 2 drives, would give 144. So if Mike invested in a good serial array controller and a second hard drive, he could actually get almost 10 times the drive performance that he has today, if he wanted to.
Are those free?
No, those are, well, they are, little books. But I can definitely compare it to, let's take this,
It does seem really slow, even compared to normal drives.
here we go. This is an ATA 100 3.5 inch 7.2K arcade. This is basically a typical 120 gig drive you buy at Office Max or Best Buy. Even that scores 31 megabits per second. So Mike's got something not so kosher with the hard drive.
Too many utilities.
Yeah, probably too many utilities. He may need to go take CashMan. If he sat there and tweaked those file frames in CashMan, he might make this a little faster. So Mike, your assignment for next week is to go home and tweak CashMan 3 times.
Almost as fast as that.
Now here's what we did. We picked a 2.5 inch drive, which is to find the laptops. And for laptop hard drives, Mike is almost right on spec. So if someone called me and said, gee, my hard drive isn't going so fast, it seems really slow, the first thing I can do is whip out standard benchmark and go, well, gee, it matches what everyone else gets at the speed. I think you're just being picky, right? Or if it comes out at half the speed, I'd say, well, gee, there's something wrong with your computer, and probably delve in and find DMA turned off, IRQ set wrong, drive horribly fragmented.
Tell them they're running Windows.
Yeah, you're running Windows Deal. But Sandra has all sorts of stuff in here. These information modules will tell you things like what video card you have, how much memory you have, what CPU you have, and all that kind of stuff. They really give you a lot of data. If you put this on Windows ME 98 or 95, you have to download some other drivers and stuff that they'll tell you about on the website. Okay, Sequoia. Would you like to see this Sequoia on there?
Yeah, it's on the desktop.
Second.
Okay, Sequoia. Okay, as you probably can guess, I work with rather large files if I have a 2.3 terabyte RAID array at my house. And one of the problems with having large files is finding out what's taking all your damn hard drive space, right? This was Sequoia complicated. This is actually from Mitch's corner, Mitch's links about a year ago or so. Sequoia goes out there and analyzes whatever drive you tell it, and it does, I forget the name of the graph, Poisson graph or some weird thing like that.
Squares.
Yeah, it actually puts squares. Every directory is a square, and all the files and subdirectories within that are smaller squares. So you can very quickly see what things are taking up the most amount of space in your hard drive. See here in a minute. You can see right here, now Mike's and all that. If you look at mine at home, I've got a lot of stuff on mine. I have a lot of hard bugs or folders. So I'll see it differently. Here's right here.
I think you're only looking at that one directory.
No, I'm looking at
Sequoia VC.
my ass right now. Let me look at Mike's.
Very abstract.
Let's look at Mike's. There we go. This is Mark's hard drive at a half at a glance. Each of these big areas like this are directories. So we move over here. This is C:\ghosts, right? And the whole directory is 866 meg. Actually, he has a subdirectory here called Chuck01 that's 868 meg.
It's one file.
Here's another file. Here's another file. These are all in the same directory. See the big yellow thing around them?
Those are images of other people's actual, their entire hard drive compressed into 1 or 2 gig files.
When we go over here, This directory, I can tell has a lot of little tiny itty bitty files in it, right? All those little tiny boxes are files, and of course that's the entire Windows NT, the entire operating system, right? And I'm looking at System 32, and of course there's also little tiny files in System 32. That's what's showing me. Over here, I got this is my page file. It's a system file. This is another system file. This is not a system file. So if I want to 11 megabytes real quick, I can delete that file. So I can very quickly find out what directories have the biggest files in them, where those biggest files are, and what in the world they are. You can see here, this looks to be a bunch of presentations of JPEG images and things. So you can very quickly see the hierarchy between files.
It color codes the file types. You can actually zoom in on them. You can actually tell it to only color code, JPEGs. If you want to find where you stuck the JPEGs, you don't know where they're at. Tell it only to color code those, and then you just look for the color. So it'll bring out files that are hidden in your subdirectories of subdirectories of subdirectories without waiting for Windows to do a search command.
And rare like files that doesn't know what they are, yellow on system files.
Does it do it visually instead of by text?
People are visual creatures, so if you give me 1,000 files, it's hard for me to find the big ones and how to relate to each other. If you give me a picture like this, I can tell you exactly all these files relate to each other. That's good. Spybot search and destroy. Michael, you have this on the screen? Spybot search and destroy is a neat one. This is kind of like antivirus programs. It has a big database of all these spyware programs. And it goes out and scans your entire hard drive and compares the files to its database and will find any spyware out there. Those things that send little nasty pop-up messages that make your computer do strange things. Those aren't really viruses, but are annoying nonetheless.
Letter E right there, the little white
Oh,
one.
yeah. And this is kind of a simple one, right? I can check for problems right now. It's going to scan the drive. It's going to find all sorts of things that people use to spy on where I've been at.
5,835 different types of bots it's looking for right now. So every time that ticks, it's looking for a different kind.
Right. One thing to keep in mind, just like antivirus software, this is only as good as it's kept current. There's a database in here. You can tell about an updated database from the Spybot website, and it'll download the latest spy bots that are out there, in the wild. If this thing's like a month old, forget it. It's pretty useless because we got new ones out, right? It also has what's called Immunize. With Immunize, it'll scan all your internet connections, and as it detects a piece of spyware being downloaded, it'll block it from coming in, just like Norton Antivirus does. Norton Antivirus, I believe, now offers a Spybot blocking tool.
I just ran this on mine before I came up here, and it found a memory resident spyware in my RAM.
Yeah, so he actually found a program that he installed, and it's getting loaded every time he runs his computer.
So every time I boot it up, it reinstalled itself.
Now, some of these aren't really things to be greatly concerned about, like these registry keys and stuff. Really just things using the registry. They don't really necessarily mean anything, but they may cause some software in this program to leak information out. Some of these things, like this file here, it's just a web document. It's not actually going to do anything, but he got this from a company that they want to do spyware. These are tracking cookies. These are cookies that people put on the machines to figure out when you go to one website versus another website. I don't think he's got any.
No major stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't have any major stuff. We actually have a program where we had Gator on where you see 40 things to click and say Gator, gain, and all sorts of nasty stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just don't fix the select problems, and they all just go away.
You have to buy this one?
This is free.
Free.
Yep. One thing to bear in mind, if you remove some spyware, a lot of times you get spyware because you downloaded another program. There's a greeting card program that's in charge of this. You install the Hallmark greeting card program.
Not reading.com.
I don't remember, but you put on your computer. I think you had this. You had the I think it's Hallmark reading, right?
Yeah.
She buys a CD from Walmart, puts it in her computer, because I agree to everything. You don't actually read the EULA and very little tiny prints. You agree to be spied on by this program, right? It installs Gator on her computer, right? So you go and remove Gator because you don't like Gator spying on you. Guess what? That software you installed along with it looks for Gator. If it isn't there, it stops running because they get money from the Gator people for every machine they install. Yeah. Yeah, so sometimes we remove these things, we actually break another piece of software in the machine. My solution is if you have a piece of software that requires spyware, I'm going to go and piece of software.
I don't want it, they're going to be seen.
That's last solutions there. CSS Start Manager. What's that?
They need
Oh, yeah.
to make sure they're
This one kind of does what Mike's little watching program did there. what this does, it's showing you all the things that start when your computer starts up. So all of these things start automatically every time Mike boots his computer. Some of these you want to keep. They're good to have. Some of these are bad. If you had Gator on here, you actually see a program here called Game. Okay? Some of these I wouldn't want to get rid of. This is my Cashman program. This is something that came. This is a compact utility. This is hot sync manager for Palm. You don't want to get rid of that if my Palm stops working. This is called Tweak UI. So there's all sorts of these things in here. This is this wind control program. But I can disable any of these I want. Yes, XP has one of these kind of built into it.
Yes.
But just plug it in right there, that just disabled it, but didn't get rid of it. So if I turn it off, and later on discover, oh, wait, I just turned off something really important like my system tray, I can come back here and turn it off.
And how do you get rid of it if you don't want it?
Hit the delete button.
This will actually pull up more than the standard ones for Windows, because it tells you right here that this one's coming from the registry. These are coming from the startup folder, so it digs in a little deeper than most programs.
Windows won't tell you that.
It's called Startup Manager.
Startup Manager. There's 1,000 things called Startup Manager. This is Startup Manager by
Info tag.
yeah.
By who?
I forget who it's made by. You can get on the desk.
Creative
That's what
Gappers.
Creative Gappers. Yeah, this is pretty old software, but it still seems to work pretty well. Creative Gappers. You won't find them anymore. They're no longer publishing software, but a lot of people have the software laying around. This Startup Manager is actually the same one. This Startup Editor right here comes from the same people that brought the Cashman. I've never actually used this before, but I saw it on their website last night and couldn't resist since I installed it in my machine. It really helped.
Yeah, I heard it's really effective.
Yeah, it's really effective and it breaks your machine all the time.
I don't.
I'm sure you have to install all the icons in the system.
Yeah. But basically what it just did is it does the same thing Startup Manager does, but instead of giving these rather cryptic things that you don't really know what they are, it comes up and gives you names for them, and it'll some of these, like this one, it knows this is Cashman. So on the other program, we would have seen this Cashman on AXE. This thing tells you it's actually Cashman. This one tells you it's the Internet Connection Setup Wizard. It actually knows this is Synchronization Manager, whereas on Start Manager, you would have seen mobsync./logon. Okay, so this guy actually has a database that tries to recognize some of these. So instead of just knowing them as really cryptic program names, you actually know the title of the program.
Can you distinction to start up between my wife's user rather than
that I don't know. I don't know if it'll actually do it by user or not. It'll probably do it for the current user that's logged in, not for everybody. This is one of my most favorite ones. I keep saying it about all these. This is task info. Larson. And you guys often know the task manager, right? That you can run down here. Right? It tells you what processes are running on your computer. And that's all I kind of get. Well, this guy does the same thing, but a whole lot more. And what he's showing me here right now, these are all the processes that are running on my computer, not just the ones that Taskman wants to show, or the task manager wants to show me. These are all of them. Let me make a purchase here. It tells me what long-term CPU utilization they've used. So I know over trends, the machine computer, how much CPU time do they use? Well, my computer's been 97% almost its life, so I'm not too concerned. If that computer's going kind of sluggish, come down here and you'll probably find one of these guys down here that's been taking an awful lot of your CPU time. This guy's at like 29%. And over here I can see this is the total amount of seconds on the CPU, switches per second, how often it's being switched back and forth. It's a measure of how active it is. How much memory it's using. So if a machine keeps popping saying you have no more memory left, come here, I'll probably find some guy that's got 4 billion, 4 gig of memory allocated in there. The threads, that's really how many simultaneous executions it has. How many handles, how many file handles it has open, how many windows it's got open, when it started, and where the program came from. So it gives you all that stuff about each of these applications. One of the neater things with this, I had a computer, in fact I still have it, that every time that you restart it, not reboot it, that's power reboot, but restart it, it seems to be sluggish. Right? You go to Task Managers, and it says it's 0% idle, but the machine doesn't seem to be really with it, right? I should take it back. You go to Task Managers, and on the graph right here, it'll show you about 40 to 50%. You come over here to the processes, and you click there at CPU to sort things by CPU, nothing shows up. 50% of my CPU is going someplace, but it won't tell me where, right? It doesn't show up in Task Manager. I came over here to Task Info, and what I discovered was that this place for interrupt place time holder was sitting there at 50%. Every time a piece of hardware in your computer wants to tell the computer something, like, hey, you moved the mouse. Hey, I'm your hard drive, and I just got that data you requested. Hey, on your keyboard, and just press the key. It pulls what's called an interrupt. Okay? And that tells the microprocessor, stop what you're doing, come service this guy. My RQ time is at 50%. I have a defective component on my motherboard that when you just restart, it gets locked up and just goes bang, 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 come look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. 50% of the time the computer runs. If you power cycle, it goes away. And I couldn't find that. I could think I had bad drivers, I had bad programs someplace. I couldn't find it under Task Manager or Load Task Info your RQ time. I went, oh, great. So I started turning off components on the motherboard until I found it. It was a defective sound card built into the motherboard. The other thing to do is come in and look at all of the files, or the drivers rather. These are all the drivers that are in here. You'll discover something kind of interesting about Windows, especially Windows 2000. If you uninstall a piece of hardware in Windows 2000, the driver doesn't go away. You can even delete the software, you can remove the files, you can remove the hardware from the remove hardware wizard, the driver still stays there. You can't get rid of the damn thing. And one of my machines I was building a little while ago, I was putting RAID cards in it. I was trying 4 different types of RAID cards to see which had the best performance and using different drivers. And I couldn't get the old drivers together and they're causing conflicts. And I went, it doesn't make any sense to uninstall the driver. Why is it still doing this? And I came here and looked, and sure enough, the driver is sitting here. So now that I knew the name of the driver, like this PCI.sys, I could go through the Red Editor, find PCI.sys, delete all the references to it, and at least get it to stop loading the thing. And so we're going to tweak your system, this kind of thing. This will also show you all the connections you have, so who's talking to whom on the internet. If you have a piece of spyware on here that's actively sending stuff out, you might discover that it's got a connection to another computer, and we'll show you where. Up here it's showing me my virtual memory that I'm using, how much CPU time I'm using, how much file I.O., so how much reading and writing through the drive. I hover for a while, it'll give me some real stuff. So right now I can see that I'm actually writing about 24K per second to the drive, just sitting there doing nothing. We've got some program out here that's doing something that we don't know about. CPU time, I'm using about 4% 50 grabs of it and all that. TCP, this is really the same stuff you get off the net for a second. It's just talking how much data I'm sending out over my network connections. Really to figure out what's running on your computer is kind of get to the program.
I actually used that program to do, they gave us the Altiris client, you can put there somewhere. That's a program that they use to actually deploy software through our network from the corporate headquarters. But it also kind of watches what you're doing. It'll count how many JPEG files you got, how many MP3 files you got, and that kind of stuff. And they claimed it wasn't, but I used this to watch what files that program was touching. And every one, it was scanning for JPEGs, the MP3s. And so you could watch what it was doing. So then we could catch the log file before it got sent into the mothership and make it run again when it was clean. So it worked out pretty well. But
yeah,
I actually used this to my advantage.
This is my Altiris client that he's talking about here, right? If I click on here, look over here, I can see files. That tells me all the files that it has open. So in Mike's case, you would see a log file. In fact, it's a client log file right here. That's this Altiris client gathering information to go tell his boss what Mike has on his laptop. Mike can then go and delete this or do some other things. So you can do some stuff like set this at idle priority so it doesn't actually get any time to run.
Yeah, I was tempted to fill my drive with MP3s and just like blow it away with like 50,000 songs and see what they did. They probably think it was screwed up, if they saw that many. It could have been fun, but then I decided to keep my job.
And the next day you didn't have to
new computer. Yeah.
Set up a virus for fun.
Yeah. One thing you do is the student can also right-click on here and get some more stuff. I can set process priority. You can use the task manager too, but I can basically tell how important this thing is. Sometimes I'm doing video encoding or video capture. I'll come through and set my capture application to high priority or even real-time priority, so nothing else can interrupt it, so I don't lose frames and have dropouts and stuff like that. You can also terminate and close. Under task manager, you can only close. Under this guy, you can terminate, which you can run the damn thing, even they won't go away. Still runs very close.
actually set that program to where, say you were taking a video that you were downloading or whatever, and give it top priority so nothing else interrupts it?
Yeah, something else to the CPU. So it just dedicates the CPU resources to that application. WinAce and WinRAW, and to speed things up. Basically, WinAce and WinRAW are like archiving programs, like Zip is. But WinAce and WinRAW, in the case like WinAce, it actually makes things much smaller than WinZip will. In fact, in some cases, as much as 50% smaller. It'll compress an MP3 file, which Zip will just actually make bigger. It'll compress a JPEG file, which Zip will actually make bigger. It'll compress a lot of files that Zip just actually makes bigger when it gets done with them. The problem with it, it's not so much a problem, it runs really slow, because it actually goes through it does about 8 or 9 different compression tests to figure out which is the best way. So size really is important to you. WinAce, the speed's important to you. WinZip. In fact, their motto is sometimes size does matter. You get a t-shirt on there too. WinAce and WinRAW is a free version. It's another archiver like WinZip. You see WinRAW used a lot like in news groups and things just because it is free. WinAce, you want you to buy it for a while. Both WinAce and WinRAW have another neat little feature to them. In fact, we had this come through the mail server a little while ago. Let's say I have a file that's even compressed is, I don't know, 10 meg. I want to put it onto floppy disks, right? Won't fit on floppy. Floppy's 1.4 meg. I can tell WinAce and WinRAW to make a multi-volume archive. It'll actually make 10 files, all of 1.4 meg in size. And I'll put them on the floppy drives in, and I can get them all back out and reassemble them. A lot of times you post things in news groups that have a limitation of like, say, 4 meg in size. You can't post the files bigger than 4 meg in size. So people will WinAce or WinRAW the file in little tiny 4 meg sections and post them in the news group. You download them on the news group and you can reassemble them. You can do it for CDs. If you have something that can fit on a CD, you'll make one archive into 2 pieces. Floppies, whatever floats your boat.
WinAce will do all that?
Yeah, WinAce will do that, so will WinRAW. One thing to be careful of, when both of these guys will all read each other's files, like the WinAce will read WinRAW, WinRAW will read WinAce. I found some instances where WinAce will tell me that WinRAW is an invalid archive, but yeah, I'll bring up WinRAW and it'll say it's perfectly fine. So you really can't have one that does them all like they imply. You really kind of need all 3, WinZip, WinAce, and WinRAW, and let them handle their own archives independently. Otherwise, they'll be, like WinRAW will change their archive format slightly. They'll give you a new WinRAW client. WinAce won't know that, and they won't update their software, and they'll tell you the new ones aren't valid, even though they're not.
Do we want to keep going tonight, or you want to do this another night next month? Should we continue?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Next month. I think go ahead. You did a good job, Jeff. I know Bob's got some. I've got some. Jerry can bring some. We can just keep this thing going and do 2 nights.
But go ahead and make the whole disc up so we can take it home.
Exactly. We can put them all on there and have that disc ready. And you can take them all home with you next month.
Do we have to pre-order them?
No, we'll make 50 of them.
Normally, like the video demos, we normally have a duplicator here, and before the meeting starts, the last set of discs in the last demo, I bring in a couple copies, and the librarian makes 30, 40 copies while the meeting's going on, and you can buy them from after the meeting. Unfortunately, the librarian wasn't here, neither was the duplicator, so all I have is my 3 discs.
I'll just warn you, tonight was kind of the technical utilities demo. My demo is going to be a little bit more of what normal people would use on a daily basis. And we talk about music, Mitch, and those kind of things, and jukebox programs, and stuff that you can download that more mere humans would use.
I tend to focus more on system utilities because typically, I can get my computer to do all the things I want to from moving files and stuff like that. It's when I run into problems, like my machine keeps locking up, or it doesn't perform the way I want it to, or I want to get just that little bit more edge on performance. So most of these guys are geared towards that. Testing, performance testing, and evaluation. All my stuff is geared towards
Playing.
Operation.
And normal. Be normal. But thank you very much.
Very good.
If anybody has a USB thumb drive or something you want to dump these on, we can do that if you want to.
What is that?
Little thumb drive like this. This is actually a big one, really.
A 1 gigabyte?
You can dump those on utilities. He had all his on a 64 meg.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is a USB thumb drive. You can get 64 meg storage. You just plug it into your USB. This kind of an oversized one that's not around your neck. But this one holds 512 meg. You get almost a full CD's worth of stuff on here. On this back.
That's $5.
Yeah, I think it's like $100. You got it everywhere.
They got $30 million.
Yeah,
$56 at
you got it.
Costco.
I'm going to cost
Yeah, well, they're real good prices on SanDisk.
Yeah.
Various
We're gonna do it again now.
various
You went through a lot of stuff. I'm
memory chips.
so.
About the best prices.
They look like they were getting tired.
You gonna talk about iTunes too?
Yes, I am.
See this thing she got from Aldi's?
We got a medium.
Yeah.
I'm real
I
happy.
mean, that sucker does everything.
Yep.
TV and the whole thing.
That's Victor's favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they all make good computers.
That's a great thing, man.
Got it for like $800 with the keyboard and the mouse.
And then your show, we got the good LCD monitor or whatever you got.
Yeah, yeah.